Okay. So we talked about, essentially you talked about connection before correcting, right? That's kind of what we were walking through. That children, when they feel seen, when they feel comforted, when they feel safe, then those walls come down and um, they're going to open up because otherwise they feel shamed, they feel disrespected, or they feel like they have to defend themselves, defend their behavior. They have to fight back. They have to prove that there's nothing wrong with them. And then when we switch that around and they feel supported and heard, then they can actually calm down and then they can open up. And that's when we have the real power for them to recognize what they should do differently. And if necessary, teach and communicate and correct and discipline. So there is something I want to show really fast though. That we're calling the listening ladder. And it's kind of like it's what we've been talking about here, but it's a visual representation of like walking through these steps, right? So we're going to first regulate. Now, this might be regulating ourselves first, right? We're going to pause and breathe.
Okay, that is so awesome. You might quickly go through this whole thing for yourself. There's a situation in the living room. I'm going to pause and breathe. I'm going to notice and reflect. I'm going to validate myself here.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to be curious, like wonder what's happening. I'm going to listen. Okay, I'm going to learn something new, and then you approach and use it
Yeah.
for the kids.
Now you can
I
use
love
it with
that.
the kids. Yeah. But the the emphasis here is especially when we're tempted, because we've been taught to parent this way, to jump in and fix the problem. That's not what we want to do. That's dealing with disciplining or correcting, right? But we're going to solve more problems and we're going to have more peace more often when we listen and learn first, right? Because again, the pyramid, we started with ourselves, the two bottom levels. Now we're on the third level, which is where we're actually interacting with our children. And that is starting there is going to be way more effective if in the long run, okay, at first it may feel less effective. At first, you're going to feel like this isn't working. It's not getting the results I want because I want obedience and compliance and it's not happening. Instead, I'm getting into a discussion with my children and I'm listening here for hours while they cry. What are you talking about, Greg and Rachel? This is horrible. This is worse. Okay. I'm telling you, this is the long-term investment that will pay off with huge dividends, but it requires upfront effort and upfront, in a way, chaos because you're changing from an old way of doing things to a new way of doing things. But it will build relationships and trust in a way that you will cherish for the rest of your life because your children will honestly love and adore you and want to spend time with you. Right now, we have a whole living room full of our young adults plus their friends, and they love hanging out with us. They love spending time with us. They love doing things with us because we've built these relationships of trust with them. And this is how we did it. It doesn't happen by accident. So, back to the listening ladder. Pause and breathe for yourself, and then get your kids to pause and breathe. And you literally just say, okay, hold on. Pause for a second. I want to figure this out. I want to hear what's happening. Take a deep breath. First, we need to calm down. Then you pay attention. You need to observe because remember, children don't yet have the words, unless we teach them, to express what it is they're feeling. So if we pay attention, we notice, and then we reflect back to them, it looks like you're maybe frustrated or upset or sad. And even if you pick the wrong word, that's okay because then they can correct you and that's fine. No, I'm not sad, I'm angry. Okay, great. Yeah, it looks like you're angry. And you might say, tell me why, right? Or you might just say, no, actually, I'm going to switch that around. I feel like asking curiously comes before validation because I would sincerely ask, tell me what's happened. What's making you feel angry right now? And then I would validate because it doesn't make sense in my mind to validate their anger without having heard them explain why they're angry, right? Because then it just feels like a false validation. Oh, you're angry? Yes, you deserve to be angry. I get it. Right? That's more like gentle parenting in my mind. So I would switch these around, but essentially you're giving them the words they don't necessarily have by saying it seems like you're fill in the blank with an emotion. Then asking them why. Well, why do you feel that way? And then they can explain it. And then you can say, okay, yeah, I understand. I would feel that way too if that happened to me. I would feel sad if my thing got ruined that I spent all that time making and then my sister destroyed it. I would feel upset too, right? So you're validating the feeling. But we have to remember that's what this step here is about, listen without fixing. Often this process works best when we're not trying to fix it, but we're just trying to listen. We're not defending ourselves. We're not necessarily defending their sibling. We're not trying to explain. We're not trying to be logical. We're not trying to correct them when we're like, oh, that's not right, right? We're just listening to them. We're listening and trying to understand.
Because, as came up in one of my coaching sessions today, kids will often see if you have some kind of agenda
Yes.
and they're like, yeah, you're just trying to get something. You're trying to
Mm-hmm.
do something.
You're only listening so that.
You can fix me. Like, and they sense that and that comes up. And so then they resist it. So I love this. You're not trying to fix, you're just with them. You're really trying to understand what's going on. Super powerful.
And it's amazing that I've seen how well my younger girls respond to this. When say one of them does something to the other that they don't like and they come to me to tell me about it, very often all I have to do is listen and validate and that solves the problem. They'll be like, "They did this." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I would be so annoyed if someone did that to me." And that's it. And they feel better. And then they go on and they actually, there's no problems. Yeah, they just go and move on because they felt validated. I didn't have to go correct the sibling. I didn't have to go say anything to them. I didn't have to go do some big, conflict resolution. I literally just listened to what happened and validated the feeling, and everybody moved on. So it's amazing how well that can work. And I don't even again, I'm not trying to fix anything. I'm literally just listening and validating, right? I'm listening and learning.
I just had an insight with that. If we don't listen well, they don't feel heard, and we don't validate so they feel like, okay, this makes sense, then it just keeps stacking and stacking and
Mhm.
stacking. And that will lead to a child or an adult that doesn't recover well, that doesn't get over things, that doesn't move on. They hold on to it. And then anything that happens is a big, big deal. And so the more we truly listen and validate, then they start moving through things very quickly.
And then the final one here is it's just about learning something new. It's about paying attention to these clues, right? Because behavior is clues. And when behavior is clues, behavior is communication. When we pay attention to those things, then you can actually start to read your children's behavior like a, and then you know what they need because you're like, when this child does that, it means they need more cuddle time with me. When this child does that, it means I need to spend some time listening to them. When this child does that, it means that XYZ. You literally start to learn this about your children, and now you can prevent problems from happening. You can reduce the conflicts. You can have more peace because you're learning to read their behavior. Does that make sense?